Everything may have just changed for Curtis Ashford, and we are witnessing what could be the biggest mistake of his entire life. We are talking about a situation so incredibly dangerous, so completely out of control, that it might permanently alter the future of everyone involved. Curtis is currently locked up, but he is not just sitting in any normal holding cell at the local police station. He has been officially transferred to the dark, isolated depths of the Windmir facility. If you ask me, that was the very first massive red flag that this was a deadly trap. The heavy metal door slams shut with a terrifying echo. The locks click into place. The footsteps of the guards slowly fade away down the cold stone hallway. And then, as Curtis lets his eyes adjust to the dim, damp lighting of the cell, he realizes he is not alone in the shadows. Sitting right across from him, leaning back against the wall with a sickeningly calm and calculating smile, is none other than Jen Sidwell. Guys, this is where it gets incredibly interesting. Curtis is now trapped in a tiny, claustrophobic cage with one of the most ruthless and dangerous men he has ever crossed paths with. The panic sets in almost immediately. Curtis knows exactly who Jen Sidwell is. He knows the absolute destruction this man is capable of causing. He immediately rushes to the iron bars and demands an urgent transfer. He bangs his fists violently against the cold metal. He shouts down the hallway for the guards to come back. He demands to be moved to literally any other cell in the entire Windmir facility. But the guards completely ignore his plea. His urgent request is flatly and permanently denied. And that changes everything. Because now Curtis is forcefully confined in a tight space with a literal monster. The longer he stands in that damp room, the more he feels the walls violently closing in around him. He is being backed into a dangerous corner with absolutely no escape route. But Sidwell is not panicking at all. In fact, Sidwell is completely relaxed. Sidwell sees a massive golden opportunity unfolding right in front of his eyes. But wait, it gets so much worse. Sidwell does not want to fight Curtis physically. He is a highly calculating villain. He knows perfectly well that Curtis is physically stronger and could easily take him down in a fair hand-to-hand fight. So Sidwell chooses a completely different, far more lethal weapon. He chooses absolute psychological warfare. Sidwell quickly realizes that despite everything that has happened in the past, Curtis still harbors deep, unresolved, and incredibly passionate feelings for Jordan Ashford. And that is the exact, precise button Sidwell decides to push. Instead of threatening Curtis with physical violence, Sidwell starts talking in a low, casual, almost friendly tone. He brings up Jordan. At first, it is just a passing mention, a little subtle comment about her impressive investigative skills, a small, seemingly harmless remark about her striking beauty. Curtis tries his absolute hardest to ignore it. He turns his back to Sidwell. He stares blankly at the wall. He grits his teeth so hard his jaw visibly aches. But Sidwell does not stop. He starts weaving a story. A very specific, highly toxic, and incredibly dangerous story. And then everything completely spiraled out of control. Sidwell drops a massive, earth-shattering bombshell right in the middle of the quiet cell. He claims that back when Jordan was working as his direct subordinate, their relationship was not strictly professional. He claims, with absolute sickening confidence, that they engaged in a highly secret, incredibly passionate romantic affair. Sidwell starts describing entirely fake, agonizing details to make the lie sound terrifyingly real. He talks about late nights spent alone together in hidden locations. He talks about stolen, intimate moments behind closed doors. He paints a vivid, disgusting picture of Jordan willingly and eagerly falling into his arms. If you ask me, this is a complete and total fabrication. It is a brilliant, evil lie designed specifically to hit Curtis where it hurts the absolute. Sidwell knows Curtis still loves Jordan deep down in his core. He knows Curtis is fiercely protective of his complicated past with her. So Sidwell weaponizes that lingering love He turns those precious memories into a sharp blade and starts slowly twisting it right into Curtis's chest. Here is where things get incredibly messy. Curtis desperately tries to block the toxic words out. He knows in his logical mind that Sidwell is just trying to heavily provoke him. He repeatedly tells himself to stay perfectly calm. He tells himself it is just a sick, twisted mind game from a desperate, cornered criminal. But Sidwell is absolutely relentless. He keeps talking, his voice dripping with venomous amusement. He lowers his voice to a mocking, arrogant whisper. He claims that Jordan actually preferred him over Curtis in every single imaginable way. He claims that everything Curtis thought he knew about his deep emotional connection with Jordan was nothing but a pathetic, one-sided illusion. Sidwell mocks Curtis for being so incredibly blind to the truth. He laughs directly in Curtis's face for holding on to the memory of a woman who supposedly gave herself completely to a criminal mastermind. The tension inside the Windmir cell becomes physically unbearable. The air is thick, heavy, and suffocating with raw, unfiltered rage. Curtis is visibly shaking. His fists are clenched so tightly that his knuckles are turning completely white. What happened next may be even worse than anyone could have ever predicted. Curtis completely and totally loses his grip on reality. The rational, logical part of his brain entirely shuts down. The intense anger that has been building up inside him finally explodes like a massive bomb. He violently lunges at Sidwell across the small space of the cell. He turns this calculated verbal sparring match into a brutal, terrifying physical altercation. Curtis grabs Sidwell aggressively by the collar of his shirt. He violently shoves him backward, slamming him incredibly hard against the cold, unforgiving stone wall. Sidwell tries to fight back, throwing his arms up to defend his face, but he is absolutely no match for Curtis's blind, explosive, adrenaline-fueled rage. It starts with that massive, bone-rattling shove. Then comes a devastating punch. Then another, and another. Curtis is not just hitting Jen Sidwell. He is trying to completely destroy the man who is dragging Jordan's sacred name through the mud. The situation rapidly escalates from a simple scuffle to a severe, life-threatening beating in a matter of mere seconds. Curtis is seeing nothing but pure red. He cannot stop his own hands from swinging. But that is not even the biggest surprise of this entire ordeal. The truly terrifying, chilling part of this brutal scene is that Sidwell does not even seem to care that he is getting severely beaten. Even as the heavy blows land on his face and body, even as he is shoved violently against the iron bars, Sidwell might actually be smiling through his painful injury. He specifically wanted this exact outcome to happen. He brilliantly orchestrated this entire emotional meltdown from the very beginning. Curtis is so deeply blinded by his overwhelming fury that he does not even realize how badly he is injuring the other man. He does not realize that with every single punch he throws, he is crossing a massive legal line that he can never, ever uncross. The brutal beating continues relentlessly until Sidwell finally collapses heavily to the cold stone floor, completely motionless and bleeding profusely. The heavy, ragged breathing of Curtis Ashford is the only sound left echoing in the dark, silent room. He stands frozen over Sidwell's unconscious, battered body. He stares down at his own bruised, trembling hands. And suddenly, the horrifying reality of what he just did comes crashing down on him like a ton of heavy brick. The guards stationed down the hall finally hear the chaotic commotion. The sound of heavy bootsteps aggressively echoes down the stone hallway. Keys jingle frantically outside the door. The heavy iron door flies open with a loud, piercing screech. The guards rush into the cell and are absolutely shocked to find Curtis standing over a severely battered, bleeding, and unconscious Jen Sidwell. In that exact fraction of a second, Curtis realizes he might have just thrown his entire life and freedom away. If Sidwell does not wake up from this brutal assault, Curtis is not just facing simple assault charges. He could be looking at severe attempted murder charges, or significantly worse. The initial panic that Curtis felt when he first walked into the Windmir cell is absolutely nothing compared to the overwhelming, suffocating dread consuming his entire soul right now. He played perfectly right into the villain's hands. He let his raw emotions completely override his common sense and years of police training. And now He is firmly trapped in a terrifying legal nightmare of his own making. Guys, this is where it gets completely insane and incredibly frustrating. Sidwell does not die on that cold cell floor. He survives the brutal, unhinged attack. But his survival is actually the absolute worst possible outcome for Curtis Ashford. Because the very moment Sidwell wakes up in the medical infirmary, groggy but entirely aware, he launches the final, devastating phase of his evil master plan. He immediately turns Curtis's explosive anger into a highly lethal legal weapon. Sidwell demands to talk to the authorities right away. He flawlessly plays the role of the innocent, defenseless victim. He claims, on official record, that Curtis attacked him completely unprovoked out of pure malice. He conveniently and completely leaves out the entire part where he relentlessly taunted, mocked, and lied to Curtis about Jordan Ashford. He successfully paints Curtis as an unstable, violent, unpredictable maniac who tried to brutally kill him for absolutely no reason at all. And the authorities looking at the bloody scene have absolutely no reason to doubt the physical evidence presented. Curtis is now firmly backed into the most dangerous, precarious corner of his entire life. He easily won the physical fight in that cell, but he is losing the psychological and legal war by a massive, undeniable landslide. He desperately tries to explain himself to the investigators. He tries to tell the guards and the detectives about the disgusting lies Sidwell told regarding Jordan. But as the words leave his mouth, it sounds like an incredibly weak, pathetic excuse. It sounds exactly like a desperate, guilty man trying to justify a brutal, unprovoked assault on a fellow defenseless inmate. Sidwell currently holds all the winning cards in this twisted game. Sidwell has the severe physical injuries to completely prove the violent attack occurred exactly as he said it did. Curtis only has his own word, and his word is now severely compromised by his undeniable violent action. The sharp legal knife is now pressing directly against Curtis's throat. His entire future, his freedom, and his life are hanging by a very thin thread, and Jen Sidwell is the one happily holding the scissors. And then Jordan Ashford forcefully enters the picture. Jordan quickly finds out about the violent altercation at the Windmir facility. She finds out exactly what Sidwell claimed about her to provoke the bloody fight. And she is absolutely, undeniably furious. She can easily and definitively prove that Sidwell's story was a complete and total fabrication. She can provide solid evidence that they never, ever had a secret romantic affair. She can completely clear her own name and prove to the world that Jen Sidwell is a manipulative, lying sociopath. But here is the devastating, tragic irony of the entire situation. Even if Jordan successfully proves to the authorities that Sidwell lied through his teeth, it does not magically erase what Curtis physically did in that cell. It does not magically heal Sidwell's documented severe injuries. Curtis is still fully and legally responsible for his violent, uncontrollable outburst. The law simply does not give you a free pass to severely beat a man just because he told a disgusting lie about your ex-wife. Curtis is now forcefully forced to face the devastating, life-altering consequences of his reckless action. He realizes, with a sickening feeling in his stomach, that he allowed a complete ghost story to destroy his current reality. He let a fabricated, baseless lie push him entirely over the edge of logical reason. Sidwell manipulated him flawlessly, playing him like a puppet on a string. Sidwell knew exactly which emotional buttons to push, and Curtis responded exactly how Sidwell wanted and predicted. Now, Curtis has to deal with the massive legal fallout of his loss of control. He is facing incredibly serious criminal charges. His freedom, his career, and his life outside those prison walls are on the line. And the absolute worst part of this entire ordeal is knowing that he did this completely to himself. He willingly handed Jen Sidwell the ultimate victory on a shiny silver platter. He let his lingering love, his protective nature, and his deep jealousy over Jordan completely blind him to the obvious, gaping trap laid out before him. The tension in Port Charles is rapidly reaching a dangerous boiling point. Curtis is sitting alone in a cold cell, facing an incredibly grim and uncertain future. Jen Sidwell is recovering in a medical bed, smirking at his own twisted, evil genius. Jordan Ashford is desperately trying to untangle this massive legal and psychological mess before it is entirely too late. But the severe damage is already done. Sidwell successfully proved to everyone that he does not need a physical weapon to completely destroy a man's life. He just needs a few carefully chosen, highly toxic words. He broke Curtis Ashford into tiny pieces without even throwing a single punch. But the game is far from over. Sidwell's lie has unleashed a chaotic chain of events that absolutely nobody can stop now. Curtis is pushed to the absolute brink, and a desperate man with nothing left to lose is an incredibly dangerous man. Will Curtis find a miraculous way to turn the tables on this evil mastermind, or is he about to lose his freedom forever? A massive, dark secret is about to be exposed, and someone is definitely not going to survive the ensuing fallout. You absolutely cannot miss the next highly explosive episode.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.